Guten Tag, and welcome to another quality content module freshly ground by small beans, where ideas are always percolating. If you enjoy this pod, please consider joining our community over at patreon.com/smallbeans, where only $3 a month gets you access to double the content, including Patreon-exclusive series like Spiel Boys and Star Trek: The Next Futurama, plus bonus episodes of your SB favorites. Much love, and enjoy the thing.
It's time for dads now. Look, it's all about dads. I don't want you talking about anything but dads. 'Cause it's all dads now. Yeah. It's Inside Dad.
Oh, there it is.
It happened.
It happened. We're
It
back,
finally
baby.
happened.
Week 4.
Yep. Week
You're-
4.
You did it. You did it.
You
You're
got-
about to listen to the 4th episode of Inside Dads, everybody.
And final one ever.
We're
No.
unsure. Probably not. Probably
Pro-
not. There's a lot
hopefully
of
not.
dad. I don't think our unified field theory of dad is honed. So I think we're probably gonna have to do some more of this. But it's
Yeah.
gonna be all for now.
Yeah, we'll keep doing it in batches.
Yeah.
Abe, have you heard of Dr. Sam Shepard?
No.
He was a neurosurgeon who was accused of killing his wife back in the 1950s. And he didn't become a fugitive. He just went to jail, I think. And then I believe he had a few trials. He was found guilty, I think, the first time. He had a retrial later. He eventually got out of prison. You know, he maintained that he didn't kill his wife. And then he became a professional wrestler. No joke.
What?
He wrestled over 40 matches as Killer Sam Shepard, which seems like, I don't know, if you maintain you didn't kill your wife, maybe don't.
Don't call yourself Killer?
Killer Sam Shepard in 1969. He died in 1970.
It always ends the same, man.
Pretty fucking dark life in general. And so he died of liver failure. The whole point is that they at least believe that The Fugitive was based off of this guy, although the writers of The Fugitive maintain that the TV show was never based off of him. And you could believe it, right? Just, it's a neurosurgeon who didn't kill his wife, according to him. That's pretty much where the comparison ends. I would have loved the sequel to have Harrison Ford as a pro wrestler.
As a wrestler, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for that story,
You're welcome.
That was a great story from Dave Bell.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Abe Epperson. We're the co-hosts of Inside Dads. And as you guessed from Dave's story, we're talking about The Fugitive, baby.
We absolutely are.
Now, this one is probably on our list so far. The most that I think everyone will agree is a dad film. Yeah?
Yes. In my opinion, this is the ultimate dad movie.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be very hard to out-dad this movie. It's also, I don't know if you agree with this, one of my favorite movies. It's one of the movies I can just close my eyes and play in my head because I've seen it so often.
That's pretty well known. Yeah.
It won Tommy Lee Jones an Oscar.
Yes, it did.
Which is wild.
It's a wild film to win an Oscar for, frankly.
Yeah, but when you watch him, he fucking shines. He's this is it's like, who is this young starlet who's popping out of the screen? Like, he's better than Ford in this. And Harrison Ford's great.
Yes.
Tommy Lee Jones makes this film. He is incredible.
And I think that the reason that everyone thinks it's also very dad is because I think ultimately it's credit to the genre, right? It's an action thriller.
Yes,
That's,
and I would
as
say
far
the-
as like we covered a lot. Like we covered sports movies a little bit. We covered like romance movies. It's one of the genres that is a very dad genre.
Oh,
general.
yeah.
So I think that's why it gets a lot of credit for that. But it is undeniably dad.
Yeah, once we get into it, I'd say there's other things that make it even more dad besides the genre. But yes,
Yeah.
thriller action. We're probably we have a ton of those that we'll be covering, no doubt.
I don't know if you had the same. There's some like missing pieces of the dad formula that this movie does provide. That the more I think of other movies, I'm like, oh yes, that is something that we haven't really seen before, but is uniquely a dad movie aspect, or at least according to me.
We talked about this last episode. This is the first dad movie we're covering where the characters aren't dads, as far as we know.
Yes, yeah.
And it is uniquely like different from the other dad films we covered, and yet has a lot of similarities. And that's why we're like, it's a good one to end on because it kind of will help us nail down like what are the most common, through lines of dad films.
Exactly, because I think we can all close our eyes, like Dave imagining The Fugitive, and think of what a dad movie is. Mm-hmm. And so let's do that. And let's start by, let's get inside this dad. Huh?
Yeah, let's climb in there. Let's open him up.
Like a tauntaun.
Spread them open and get in that dad.
Uses warmth.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Can I start with what I think makes this? Okay. This is Dad v. Dad. That's what makes it such a dad movie.
Double daddy.
We have Dr. Dad, and he's got a big dad beard that he has to sacrifice later, the ultimate sacrifice for a dad.
Yeah.
And he's got employees. Throughout the movie, we just are constantly told how great he is by his other colleagues. They interview other colleagues who keep being like, we love him. He's our daddy. His colleagues being Jane Lynch for one, which is an interesting appearance. I always forget she's in this. Julianne Moore gains a dad because she respects him. Yeah. Because he saves a kid. So he's Big Daddy Doctor. With his Big Daddy beard, lots of mustaches and beard.
And then you have Tommy Lee Jones, who's like daddy of a squad.
Exactly. He's even a bigger dad.
He's dropping wisdom and they all listen and
he's in charge. And he's going through the system. He doesn't care if he killed his wife or not. That's not the problem. The problem is he's got to bring his man in. And there's other broad strokes there. Another way I think this is unique dad movie that the other ones have less of is that this is a quote, what would you do situation. It's a hypothetical. The same way, like that idea of like the stereotype of guys all having like contingency plans for if they had to fight an animal. This feels like a very dad thought experiment, which is what do I do if I'm on the run from the law?
Right. And it's got a little bit of that like North by Northwest, like Hitchcock in it, which is, everyone against you.
Right.
And it's like, what do you do with that? Because that's something that's, I think, uniquely of this time, dad. Yes. 1993. That's a different dad than, 30 years later.
Right.
But, it's still the same kind of, it's the dad we were told as we were growing up.
For sure.
And I think that there's a lot in that. Yeah, absolutely.
There's also the fact that it's based off an older show, which was probably watched by dads.
For dads by dads,
yes. There's other similarities, but I guess we could just like go through the plot to point them out.
I like doing that. This section is where we go through more or less chronologically, but we just talk about the sections that are like, oh yeah, that's something that is daddy. And I think right off the bat, because we get shots of the city intercut with black and white, like slow shutter speed footage of the murder of a wife.
Yep. Women in peril.
Women be dying. And I think it's important. I think there's a touch in this that I want to point out, just directorially. I think it's important that when she died, she was close to the phone. She makes that 911 call that we hear later. But it's important that she is by the phone, because if only she could call a dad this tragedy would be avoided. It makes it that much more tragic to all the dads in the room because they're just like, the technology exists to activate me, but for some reason she couldn't reach it, and she couldn't call, she couldn't call her
True.
daddy, which is
well, he
weird
calls
to
his
say.
name, like
She-
right?
yeah, she
which
does.
ends
She
up
now-
implicating
Mhm.
him. And yeah, it's his hot wife. She's got to be a hot wife, and she's super duper dies, and then she exists only in mournful flashbacks.
Yep. And so we get details about, and this is all happening simultaneously. Very good weighted intro movie, in my opinion.
Right.
You get like recreations of the night as like a memory. It's kind of cool because we get details about Dr. Richard Kimball, played by Harrison Ford.
Right.
And he's, a rich doctor, specifically philanthropist. And he buzzes around a party, has many friends who talk about golf and like how many cars they have.
Yeah.
But I love how it plays like memories in Ford's head while he waits to be interrogated. So we have like this triple space occurring where it's like him remembering his events of the night, him imagining what her events were during the night, and also the now, in the aftermath and the glow of the death. It's just kind of cool.
Oh yeah,
a
it's
cool
well
way
done.
to do it. And then we get in a car ride home, and he gets a call in his very fancy car. This is a memory of earlier in the night
Mhm.
that he's not needed in surgery to fill in for someone, but rather another doctor wants his help
Yeah.
during surgery. And I think that's another dad trope, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it shows that he'll help out. First off, he'll help out others, which is like, oh, good. Let's save the cat. He's doing good stuff. He's a good guy. But he's the goddamn best vascular surgeon
Yep.
in the biz.
And other women are going to show up in this film to constantly, as I mentioned, admire how good he is. It's just he's so good. He's
And-
just such a good guy.
When he gets the phone call and he hangs up and he's like, I gotta go, honey. I'm sorry. It's work. Which is, I don't know. I think that's been every movie we've covered so far. She says, I'll wait up for you.
Oh
which
yeah.
I love.
Which again,
Because-
like American President, workaholic stuff.
Yeah.
Daddy's
and it's
gotta
that
work.
she is the best wife because you just wait for him. Right. And that's
Yeah.
what dads want. So yeah, that's what we get in like his memories. And then we hard cut to the interrogation proper with the cops and everything like that. And its functions essentially to do one thing, that the cops think that he did it and they're just not budging from that opinion.
Right.
Clearly he did it. His skin is under her fingernails. He looks like he's been in a fight. There's no proof of a one-armed man. It seems
Right.
outrageous.
He's claiming a one-armed man.
It seems like an obvious made-up story after the fact, and the fight and the reason he's bleeding is
Right. For some reason, it doesn't occur to him that he let his colleague borrow his keys because they're like, does anybody else have access? And he's like, no. And then spoilers later in the movie, he's like, oh, right. That guy did. And it's like, boy, you went through the whole trial not remembering that, huh?
yeah.
You kind of deserve to go to jail, you jackass.
There's also a lovely moment that happens kind of a little bit later. You mentioned it in the trial where we get the playback of her saying he's trying to kill me,
Right.
Richard, and which is interpreted not as a cry for help, but rather as a declaration of a killer.
Yeah.
But my favorite part of that edit is that the one-armed man then pushes the button right after that, which I'm sure he was like, well, that was a freebie.
Exactly.
Like it was like the perfect sound
Wow.
clip.
Cool.
Yeah, he was just like, wow, I'm really going to get away with this.
Right. Yeah. This is
But-
why if I'm ever murdered or even just die accidentally, my final thing is I'm going to write a friend's name in blood just to fuck with them,
God, you're the worst.
Yeah,
I'm
just for funsies.
I hate that you're my friend, which I know is going to make it more likely that my
Yeah,
name
you know
is
what's
gonna
an
be
easy
written
name to
down.
write? A
I know.
shorter name.
I was just gonna say it's a shorter name. Abe
Yeah.
is easy to just whip out at the end
Exactly.
while you're getting murdered.
Yeah, but
Well-
I want to talk about this is a dad thing, and this is a very cynical
Mm-hmm.
dad one. But this whole movie is based on the idea. So, as people probably know, statistically, when a woman dies in her house with her husband there, the murderer is the husband. I'm not saying always. I'm saying statistically, it's almost always the husband, right? That's just how it is. It's most murders are the victim. It's someone who knew them, right? And so, statistically speaking, Kimball's fucking his alibi here, his reasoning. It's a one-armed man who came in is quite frankly like something a murderer would say.
Yeah.
It's very obviously something a murderer would say. And if you saw this in the news, you would say that man killed his wife, and you'd be right.
Yeah.
And so this movie is saying to all the daddies, no, you didn't. You didn't kill your wife. Don't worry about it. Like, maybe not to the wife specifically, but it's just such a very like this fantasy of like this elaborate way a guy didn't kill his wife. It feels like exactly the kind of seed that's planted where later you'd like, if this happened in real life, there'd be guys being like, I don't think he did it. Like, what if he was framed? He could have been framed. He's so important, you know? He's so important that he gets framed. Your job is so important.
How often does that happen? Well, it could happen.
It could happen. It happened in The Fugitive.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's exactly in tow with like what we've been saying about like the world is against them somehow. And they're going to have to prove, in this case, his innocence and get their wife's killer with, you know, all that he's got, you know, in his head and his body.
Because ultimately you learn he's too damn good at his job.
He's so good.
Just like all the others. He's so good at his job.
That's why they wanted to kill him. Anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
I just want to make a note that in this section, it's in very, like, I guess there's parts of it in Witness, but Harrison Ford is really good in this. I forget how good he is in this. He's
great, yeah.
Especially his deer in headlights look during, like, all of Act 1 when he's getting put into prison. He's just like, oh, fuck, I'm going to prison.
Yeah.
It's just really well, I don't know. It's been a while since I watched this movie, but I noticed that, and I was like, oh.
I would argue, he's never said this, but I think he's one of my father's favorite actors. I would argue, I'm not know for sure, but my dad always said Harrison Ford is amazing at looking like he's in pain, and it's so true. Like emotional pain, physical pain, he sells it so well.
He sells, and he can, because he can also take the pain and channel it into other stuff, like turn it into anger, turn it into self-loathing. He can do all that stuff, and that's a hallmark of a good actor, obviously. But enough about that. I'm sure we'll wax poetic about Tommy Lee Jones when he comes on. But let's
wax that Jones.
Sure. But we cut to the bus of the prison, and there's an attempted breakout. I'll go through this quickly because you all know it if you've seen this movie. Guy fakes being sick, storms the guards. The driver is killed, and the bus rolls over some train tracks, and a train comes.
Yeah, and I need to point something out.
Yeah.
Very daddy. It's two dicks crashing into each other.
Oh, yeah. That's
two
true.
Big dicks crashing right into each other.
There is something about trains, cars, and planes that we're starting to notice also about dad movies, right?
Also, shout out to the production that didn't clean this stunt, and you can still find these things today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is very dad-like of them to not clean up, I would argue.
Yeah,
they just left there. You can go to like, I don't know where, it's like Georgia. It's somewhere like Tennessee. I don't know. And you can find this old train and this old bus just crashed together.
What
in
a
the woods.
fantastic feat of laziness that benefits everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Except I'm sure the people who live there.
Yeah.
One important part is that he helps a cop, even though the cops obviously are a part of his problem. And even when another cop runs away from that because he sees the train. So this shows that our protagonist, he cares more about life than anyone else. Dad achieved.
Well, yeah, and you know what that is? That's a reverence. It's a reverence for preserving life, for his code as a doctor, otherwise known as the system.
Yep, the Hippocratic Oath is bringing us in. Yeah, dude. One thing I noticed this time is that just from a geography standpoint, he like launches the guard's body over. And then the second car that kind of dislodges from the train and chases forward down the incline. And, you know, you get that he jumps, you know, and falls into like a trench. You know, we all know that shot. I think it was on the cover at one point.
Right.
That based off where he threw the body and where the train's trajectory was going, that train definitely ran over the guard.
Yeah,
right?
but he
I know the
saved
guard
him.
is alive, and
He saved him first,
but
and then
but it's like he threw him into the.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just rewatch the movie and tell me if I'm crazy. That cop is a smushed cop, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no doubt.
And the only thing of note plot-wise is that a second fugitive also survives and
Right.
escapes, but is going in a different direction than
I
Ford.
want to know. He doesn't. You know, the whole thing is it wasn't his fault. He escapes, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that becomes important later, once again, for the code, the dad code.
Dad code.
And so we get inner Tommy Lee Jones, our dad number 2. It's a dad off.
It's immediately a pissing contest too, because
Yes,
he shows
it
up
is.
and they're like jurisdiction, and he's like, "Aha, me," and the other guy's like, "Me,"
Yep,
and then
that's
he's
how it
immediately
goes.
vindicated because he's like, "I think this prisoner's escaped," and the other guy's like, "No, they all died,"
Mhm.
and then he's like, "I'm taking over," and then he's like, "Ah, looky here, prisoner shackles with no
Yep.
limbs in them."
Immediate
I
validation.
was right. Yeah.
Yep. So he's not only a walking, talking badass with a team that gives him respect, but he's always right.
And clever, yes.
And he's clever, and everyone thinks he's the leader, and he will coach this fugitive back into his cell. God damn
Right,
it.
because he shows up with like we said, a little like baby ducklings following him,
Mhm.
and then he's like, "I'm daddy here," and amasses even more baby ducklings by
Yes.
becoming father of the crime scene.
Because he's a shepherd of a
Yep.
flock. He's Jesus-like.
He is
He's like Jesus' ultimate daddy, right?
right,
Jesus ticks all the boxes.
right.
Yeah. And he, so he goes over the investigation with everyone. And I love especially his little squad there. And I love that his tactic is very dad-like too, because he uses forceful talking. Like we get
Yes,
the outhouse and the doghouse speech. And it's just like he just barks orders and people are expected to follow because of their reverence for the system.
he also.
he's on the
Oh, sorry.
well, just that he's on the top of a system of datitude.
Yes,
Like it goes, it's dads all the way down.
there's also, and we saw this with Kimball, which is like he's so good. Tommy Lee Jones is also has work ethic. He's thorough. Everything. So from here on, everything's about thoroughness. He goes like, "I want a perimeter of 50 miles. No, make it 20 or something like that." Later, the guy says, when they think he's dead, he goes, "The guy is fish food." And he goes, "Then catch the fish that ate him. Bring him to me."
Yeah,
it's very
exactly.
dad, where it's like, I want this house cleaned. You know, I want to see my face in this tile. I want no stone unturned. Thorough. Ethics.
Thorough, militaristic,
Work, hard work.
discipline, all that
Yep.
stuff.
I want you guys to do your job.
hmm And we get a steady, and what I obviously about this movie, since it's a dad off, is we have them in conflict immediately. And I love the little nod that they have of just from the get go. I mean, obviously Tommy Lee Jones knows that he's a fugitive, but of Ford, the way he says doctor is like this fucking dandy.
Yeah.
You know, like so he's
Richard
already
Campbell.
throwing shade on dads that he hasn't even met dads, and he's already calling his shot.
Yeah.
You know, we cut back to Ford Fugitive, and he's crossing a river. And here's a moment I wanted to ask you about, because you've lived in colder climates. He finds a tow trucker, and I just want to point out that the guy just takes off his second pair of pants that he has on. And maybe this is done in Illinois where it takes place, but I'm a California boy and an idiot. So it's just funny to me that like he needs pants. That's like the thing he needs. And lo and behold, the man is like, well, don't need these second pair of pants.
So yeah, I can actually. So it doesn't seem that cold,
Right.
because later he's in water and stuff, and he doesn't die, or like freeze to death. He sleeps in the woods overnight.
Like a bear.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Like a real fucking bear dad. Oh, that's a big dad one.
Yeah.
The camping aspect. So to me that says like, okay, it's not cold enough, but if you were working outside a lot, you absolutely have multiple layers in the winter. You have pants. You usually have long underwear, then pants, and then sometimes snow pants. And then if you're working a lot, you might get too hot, so you'll take off a layer because you're naturally warming
That's
yourself
right.
up.
I mean, I gathered that, but it just seems like he took off a pair of jeans off of another pair of jeans, which maybe that's what
seems
his
a little
deal is.
weird. Yeah,
And more than anything, it's just convenient, and I laughed at it. But as we mentioned, like a bear, Ford Fugitive returns to a hospital because it comforts him, like a cave does to a bear.
Yep.
And he because he has to treat his wound, so he's sneaky and clever and acts like a loader and gets himself into a room.
And it's again, what would I do in this scenario? It's playing it out.
How would I survive?
Yeah.
And that's also where he cuts off his beard, which makes him sad because it's the source of his power and all that.
Yeah. And it's also when he disguises as a doctor, and then a cop goes, "Hey, Doc, you fly."
Right.
Because we love dicks and piss.
A little sexy embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that we're starting to, I think we're finding out. That's important to dads, is that dicks and stuff. Anyway, he steals an ambulance. And then we're back with the Fugitive Squad, where Tommy Lee Jones' tactic once again is whenever something he needs done is like poo-pooed by the team, he just loudly says what he wants again over and over.
Yep.
And their little tiny complaints just stop. He's just raw dogging leadership is basically what's happening.
He sure is.
It's just a real child's tactic. I love it. Anyway, we're intercut with the hospital, and the guard that he ran into, or the guard that he saved, Ford, that is, recognized him as he was, taking the ambulance
because he couldn't helping save the guy. He tells the doctor, like, tell him he's blah 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 medical thing, because he knows where the guy's been stabbed.
We get several beats of that throughout this movie. Is he can't help it.
His big weakness, is he has to help people.
It's real Star Trek problems, right? It's like, well, we got to get out of here, but also these people we need to save every last one of them.
Right.
And the ambulance is obviously reported stolen, and the quickness with which Tommy Lee Jones's team gets this information throughout the movie is like an alarmingly impressive infrastructure that I don't think exists ever.
Sir, we just got a report that he had a dream about his dead wife. Ah, thank you.
Thank you.
He's just learning about the scenes as they happen.
And immediately
they show him the script every time.
And they immediately know where to go, and they know where to search, and they're there within seconds. Because what makes this thing really run, pacing-wise, is that, like, Tommy Lee Jones is really on fucking Harrison Ford's heels the entire movie.
There is a reason, like, narratively, why, like this is, they didn't set out to make a dad film. They just did, because for this movie, to make this interesting, and why it's one of the best movies, in my opinion, is because he's, like you said, he's always at his heels. And in order to do that, they keep having these moments where Tommy Lee Jones, you realize, like, he's not going to fucking stop. That's the whole point. He is thorough. He's such a daddy because that's terrifying, because he's hunting him, and he is relentless. And that's what makes the movie interesting, is that basically half of the movie is Harrison Ford running away just as Tommy Lee Jones gets there. And having no time to rest.
And, Ford is the world's most dangerous game.
Exactly. He really is.
He's just perfect prey. Yeah. But because like the Fugitive Squad is just immediately on a helicopter, and they, within less than a minute of screen time, they have found him. They have found the ambulance, which is crazy because they were all the way over by the wreckage of the train, and he's been walking around all night. He's been going to hospitals and shit. They finally corner him in a tunnel, but Ford Fugitive sneaks into the sewers, and because he's willing to get dirty, which is another cleverness shown by Harrison Ford. And Jones finds Ford, but he drops his gun, which Ford picks up. And we get the whole, I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
I don't care. Because, again, it's work ethic. He doesn't care. He's just going to get the job done.
He's just there to be a journeyman, just an absolute craftsmanship, a horse. Yeah. He's a horse.
Yeah.
And I love that the reveal after, Ford Bear runs away, scampers away with his gun. The reveal is that, but dad number 2 is equally crafty and clever. He's got a concealed second gun.
Yeah, of course he does.
Of course he does.
So that goes into dad love of gadgets, which is second guns, backup equipment.
Yeah. Preparedness. Yeah.
Preparedness.
Anyway, the chase leads him to the, what do you call that? The dam nozzle?
Sure.
The hole in the dam.
Damn piss hole, yeah.
The piss hole. Yeah, or whatever. He and we get that scene where he jumps.
Right. Yeah. He throws a dummy off.
And I mean, they have a vocal or like a conversational tete-a-tete, but really ultimately it's all the same stuff.
Yes.
It's just like, I don't care. You're not going to jump. I'm going to bring you in. Well, I'm not going to be brought in.
But I need to talk about this because it's obviously showing Harrison Ford's desperation, but there's definitely that, oh my God, I can't believe he did it. And I would say this plays into a lot of dad instincts, which is everyday guy doing an amazing badass thing.
Yes.
It is behind every failed backflip in the world, right?
Yes.
This moment, which is, I bet I could do that. I could make that jump. That's what we're seeing here. It's the ultimate, like, yeah, I might be an accountant, but I bet I could jump off a dam. Like that's the thought process here. It's like
that's what it comes down to. Dads want that. It's like, what if my confidence though was reality?
Right. Look at this everyday guy doing something awesome.
And they even say like, a million people jump from that dam and they all die. 1 in a million, is what I think they say in the thing.
Yeah.
And then he jumps and he lives.
Of course.
Oh yeah, he takes a little snooze after. It's fine.
Yeah. He has a dead wife dream. And I might be skipping ahead a little, I guess. I just want to note that's the writer going, oh, we should make sure that they know his dick works.
Yeah,
because he has a
fucking
dream.
his dead wife.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we assume he's succumbing to hypothermia and thinking happy thoughts, but because he also dreams of the one-armed man, because that's the moment in the screenplay where we realize it's not just enough to escape. He must find the man. Justice must be served, baby.
Yep. He also dreams of the best line delivery of the movie, which is, we can't find the guy.
We can't find the guy.
Can't
find the guy. It's like repeated. Yep. It's so good. But yeah, just backpedaling a little bit because I want to hit the Jones part, which is that Jones like kind of reconvenes with the squad and barks more orders. And I love at one point, Tommy Lee Jones is frustrated because the river isn't turned off. Yeah. Like his demands are like,
who's going to turn off that water? Yeah.
It's like you were down there 5 minutes ago. First off. Second, what? Like, I know it's a dam, but
it takes a minute.
Do they even do that? Don't they have to plan that?
They do shut off the water.
They do shut it off, but doesn't it have to be like a day to do that?
Yeah,
they have
exactly.
to like plan for it and I would say some stuff around, I assume.
The movie does a good job, but all the people around him, including like Joey Pants and Ponytail, they're all kind of exasperated. Like they're all kind of like, you can't just do that. And I don't mean like morally. Like, I mean, we can't just turn off the
infrastructurally
dam. It's going to take a minute.
Yeah, and he's just, I don't care. Yeah. Once again, we got to get this guy. And so we kind of get a little time lapse and it turns into night. And this is the night where Ford dreams of fucking his dead wife. But I wanted to point out once again, what is Tommy Lee Jones doing during this time? Smoking a cigar, baby.
Oh, yeah. Is this when he's in his little red vest?
Yeah.
I loved that red
little
vest.
mad dad vibes going on. Because he's all comfy and Ford's all dying of hypothermia.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to take a moment also to mention Tommy Lee Jones' speech patterns. This is one of the things that I think really makes him really fly off the screen in this movie, is that like the lines they give him, it's also how we infuse folksiness into this movie, because he says stuff like, something ain't over until the big dog howls, which is not a saying, because later he calls himself Big Dog.
He does.
barks.
He keeps talking about Big Dog.
It's just this random speech patterns that he has that it's like, if you were to say this in real life, people would probably after a few times call it and say like, what you're saying isn't like a saying. Like that's a weird thing to say, but anyway,
but that's
no one's
going
to say that.
It's the dadness.
Yeah, he can get away with anything.
Yeah, later he does the like, that's not an L train. Are you sure that's an L train? And then they identify and he's like, I told you that was an L train. And they're like, Dad.
Dad, you're rewriting history to make yourself look great. So next what happens is that after Ford survives the night, he hitchhikes and he's picked up by an age-appropriate woman who's thirsty as hell for his fugitive body.
So I would argue, so my first instinct was like, oh, this is a lady at rock bottom. But then I realized that if I saw Harrison Ford hitchhiking, I would probably pick him up, even if I didn't know he was famous. Because, you know, he's a
drawn
very
to the magnetism
man.
Yeah, exactly. And I think from a script perspective or from a dad movie perspective, the point is he's still got it, baby.
Of course.
We know that because he has a hot wife.
He could start hooking.
But he could start hooking if he needed to.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, we don't know if he went down on that lady in the car. We don't know. They don't show us, you know?
Yeah. And then we have a section where one of the cool aspects of the movie is that the Fugitive Squad does a lot of like undercover stuff. They do this in U.S. Marshals as well.
I was about to say, I love that U.S. Marshals, this is the big thing that carried over, which is that they go in disguises.
They're disguises. And I love it because it also... like in terms of dad vibes, it allows our cops to be even more blue collar disguises, because they're always just like, I'm just putting the leaves in the bucket. You know,
so
like
that's something that happens later too, which is the idea that Tommy Lee Jones, he's not a stupid regular cop, and in fact seems to have contempt for the Chicago PD. No, he's a special daddy cop. He's a U.S. Marshal.
Right.
So it creates this, and both this and Kimball's arc is rebellion, but also reverence for the system. Like they get both. They have their cake and eat it too.
It's like coming up. They actually tried to make this TV show, by the way, but I haven't watched it. But it might as well. Like, I hope it was just about this kind of shit, like just doing disguises and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like it's like next on Fox, Rustic Justice. You know, it's just like ridiculously folksy cops. And that's what we get. And of course, in this case, the sting or whatever we want to fucking call this goes terribly.
We should note they have no reason to dress up.
They don't.
They show up in...
They barge down the door.
In outfits, and then just kick open the door. And it's like, well, that's not how a sting works.
That's not, like, they didn't plan this out. It's like, why did you do the dress up? It's not like you did anything different than if you were in your normal clothes.
Exactly.
It's little missteps like this that like do not damage the movie in any way in my mind. I'm sure someone might be. Yeah, I mean I'm bothered by it, but it's
you could argue that they're scared that the guy is going to see them coming from the window. But it really doesn't matter because they just surround the house.
It's fun. It's fun. It's
ultimately it doesn't make a difference because the guy still takes a hostage, as we learn.
Yeah, so they not only that, they like played into his plan, I guess. His like random plan that he made in like a split-second decision. But yeah, this guy is the second fugitive who has been on the run.
Right.
And he's been shacking up with the lady in some like abandoned apartment or whatever, or abandoned house. And they end up shooting him because he has a gun to one of their heads.
They end up creating a convenient scenario for them to shoot a man dead. Is how I would like, because Tommy Lee Jones ends up executing the man who's holding this guy hostage, which yes, in the scenario you're like, okay, but this guy is giving demands at the time, and so you could argue there is a negotiation. Yes.
That's and that's what I want to get to is the writing and like the implications of the second follow-up scene with Jones and the guy who had the gun to his head, because the guy is obviously shook and he's like, he accuses Tommy Lee Jones of saying, like, you were fast with the gun. He was clearly
We could have
bargaining.
bargained, yes.
And Jones just says, I don't bargain.
Right. He also tells a panicked woman to shut up before he leaves.
Yep. And he
after
points a
killing
gun at
her
her.
boyfriend.
Yeah, he loosely like throws his gun over at her.
Yeah, what
Like,
we see, I would argue, is a terrifying
A crime.
overreach of police power.
a crime, I would
Yeah.
say.
And-
Several crimes, probably.
But they are setting up what you're just saying, because the whole point, obviously, is if you're watching this for the first time, it's so hard to put it into context. We don't know what Tommy Lee Jones is going to do. And that's the whole point.
Yeah,
he
that's
doesn't
the whole
bargain.
point. It's
He's terrifying.
which is great from a character perspective, because it means we're now seeing him as tyrannical, and
Right.
it's like, in other words, it's his world and we're just living in it, which
Yes.
is like the arrogance of someone who would be able to catch anybody,
Yep.
but also someone who is a loaded gun that could just go off at any time in any
Right.
direction
As
from our
he's-
perspective.
Yeah, as he
so
says,
Harrison
don't argue
Ford
with
is like,
the big dog is always right.
so yeah, when Harrison Ford puts his life in his hands, he has no fucking clue if that's going to work, and that
Yeah.
kind of builds the genre, or builds the drama, as he said. So the next step is Ford calls his lawyer, and somehow he knows that it's a bugged phone call, which is a weird subsection of knowledge that he
Right.
would have as a doctor, right?
It's either that or the lawyer is like really squeaky clean, because he's basically like, I'm going to have to report this.
Right, and he just assumes it. Yeah,
Yeah, which
That's
is it's probably a good lawyer thing to do.
Probably. And knowing this, he drops that he's in St. Louis, and we cut right to Fugitive Squad listening to the call. This is the scene where he calls himself Big Dog and how he's always right.
Yep.
And they hear an elevated train, which means that it's not in St. Louis. And they also hear bells and isolate the soundscape, and they hear a conductor in the background and realize that, oh, guess what? He's in Chicago still. And
Right.
they wonder about that. Why is he back in Chicago? And the team goes to work quickly, I guess, to research Chicago. I don't really know. Everyone kind of disperses, and only like one job is like, you do
Right.
this, and everyone else is like, I'm gonna also do something.
Yeah, I'm going to go stand outside and look around for him.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but it's just, it keeps the scenes moving, you know? It keeps like the hustle and the bustle.
Of course.
But it's important also because the scene that immediately follows is Joey Pants, apropos of nothing, when they're alone with Jones Cop. He's like, when I die, I want to come back like you.
Yes.
Which is a hell of a thing to say, especially because in that scene, Tommy Lee Jones did not really do anything. He didn't ever. The team,
No,
that was a team.
He literally said like, I don't think that's an L train, and then was like,
Everyone's
yeah,
like,
I
think it is.
totally
I
think it's an
it
L
is.
train.
I lived under one for 20 years.
No, he's respecting like his guile. He's just like he's like respecting. I don't know, just his overall dadness, his confidence.
That's the thing, is I think it's just generally put in the script just to be like, remember, Tommy Lee Jones needs a W as well.
Right.
Like, it's the team gets a W, and Tommy Lee Jones is totally like all about the team. It's not like he's like tyrannical and petty. It's just because he's joking and, you know, with all of his teammates. But it's like, when they get a win, he needs to get even more of a win. And
Right.
I think that's the important distinction with dad movies, is that our protagonists, our dads, specifically have to get extra credit because they are the leader.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, it's that energy. Ford needs money, so he tracks down his old doctor pal.
Yeah.
And he's a nice guy because he tells him like, hey, I'm too hot, so I don't want to involve you. Just give me what you got on you.
Yeah, and his colleague seems like, I don't know, a little slimy, a little bit
slimy.
got a little bit of a vibe to him.
More on that later. He uses the money to get a shitty like apartment sublet, and then he returns to a hospital again because once again, it makes Ford Bear safe. And this time, it's to investigate prosthetic arms. So he's going to task. He's doing his own little detective work.
Yep.
And I love this small scene where the reception lady asks, "Can I help you?" And he just mumbles garbage and then says gracias at the end. And it works. She does not investigate further who the strange man is lurking in like this obviously secure space. For all she know, he has like a prosthetic fetish and he's just here to jerk
Right.
off.
Right.
It's crazy. What a crazy time the 1990s was.
Absolutely. Oh no,
Nobody
it's
could
crazy
believe.
that he gets an apartment in this, and gets
Also
like
true.
a fake job and stuff. And it's like, oh man, I could never do this today. I can't be on the run. Like if this was made now, he would be caught so fast.
Well, here's my secret theory: is that when you're as handsome as Harrison Ford, maybe it is still this easy.
Oh, that's a good point.
I don't
wanna,
know.
Yeah, I want to note that this is a part of a reverence for the system or daddiness, which is that so far he's been the criminal. He started as daddy doctor, respectable job, right? And he gets framed, so it puts him bottom of the ladder as like, oh, you're a criminal now, you're a fugitive. So on that social hierarchy, he is, dads don't like criminals, but so he has to investigate his own crime, elevating him to cop status. He is now the criminal and the cop. So now we have two cops, basically. Two cop
Dad
daddies.
cop, dad cop, doctor cop, doctor, dad cop, and doctor cop.
And now they're
dad cop.
Yeah, and now they're both doing an investigation.
Yep. And this has happened simultaneous to Tommy Lee Jones interviewing, because once again, he's everywhere that Ford goes. The next scene for Tommy Lee Jones is exactly where Ford just was.
Yes.
So he's now talking to the swarmy doctor friend.
And he's like, yeah, I talked to him. So what? Because the movie wants us to like him, therefore he's a straight shooter.
He's a straight shooter. That's right. Good distinction, Dave.
Yep.
And he cautions also that Ford is too smart to be found.
He is one of many people who are just like, again, Tommy Lee Jones interviews who is like, he is the best dad. He's a better dad than you, Tommy Lee Jones. What are you going to do about it?
So I haven't studied law. I don't know all the ins and outs, but also, isn't this a confession of abetting a criminal?
Yes.
Like him saying, yeah, I saw him and I gave him money and I'm not telling you where he's going because he didn't tell me. Isn't that like jail time?
But again, so this is, okay. You're right. You're 100% right.
Oh, okay.
But I think what all of these movies, from The Judge to this, are constantly going to battle with, which is the reverence for the system versus nobody likes a little nerdy snitch.
That's right.
That's the thing, is that this is always going to be, because you look at Robert Downey Jr. as the lawyer, he still goes, he bends the rules, right?
Right.
That's the cleverness. It's bending the rules. It's in this where they're like, Chicago cops, they're shitty, but these new U.S. Marshals, we love them.
Right.
He's a fugitive, but he's doing stuff within the system. And so it's, or like Michael Douglas, again, rat fucking his girlfriend, but it's all in reverence to the system. He's unconventional, but he has reverence. And so Tommy Lee Jones here knows, because part of the reverence for the system is also knowing, or the faith that the system is lenient, which it absolutely isn't unless you're white, which this guy is, so I guess that works.
Slam dunk.
Because like Robert Duvall in The Judge being like, he was like, I saw my son in him, so I let him go. It's the reverence for the system and leniency, specifically, it seems, for white guys.
And I think that when you say system there, I think I just want to clarify, I think what you mean, because it's not just the system of like the protocols that are in place in society. In fact, most of the time we're very libertarian about this and we don't like that. And it's not shown in a positive light. It's the system of the untold kind of like
rules.
Social contract rules of society. It's respect, it's civility.
Right.
It's that kind of shit.
Yeah. So
and
I
I think,
here, it's like, he could technically cuff him, but like that's
he's
such
not
a
gonna,
sniveling, like that has
because
such
he's
wimp energy of like him.
He's got
cuffing this
integrity, you know. He's not going to get off on a.
Even though, spoilers, if this man was in custody, that would make this go a lot smoother.
Yeah, he's the actual super criminal.
Spoilers. In what is I think Big Dad energy, his work colleague is a snake.
Yep. It's the work colleagues. That's how they get you.
Yep.
And then we get like Then we get like this montage, which is a hilarious montage to me because it's not a useless montage. It's just a bad montage because Fugitive Squad is investigating more doctor buddies, and it's we aren't truly listening to the montage. We're just kind of taking in the vibes, and the music is kind of rips. So we're all just like, yeah, all right. But like, there's this short scene where it's inside the montage where it's like, he was a vascular surgeon, which means that he fixed veins coming from the heart. And then Joey Pants, literally 2 lines later, goes, and what kind of medicine did he practice at the hospital? So it's like, they just found it in editing. And I just think it's funny that it's like they reversed it. It makes Joey Pants look like he wasn't listening, which is
Right.
I don't think what they intended. It's just one of those things in montages that I think movies get away with because they want it to sound good and feel good.
Yeah, and they just want to move it along, and your brain doesn't necessarily notice.
But the montage continues, and Ford Fugitive learns that about prosthetics and is creating a fake badge so he can work a maintenance job or like break in as a maintenance worker at the prosthetics lab. Jane Lynch is there at some point. And we get shots of Tommy Lee Jones just looking at Ford's handcuffs.
Yep. Yeah, he
like
sure does that.
Like he's
like
thinking
Sherlock
like,
Holmes.
what to be a fugitive, kind of bullshit. Real shitty montage. Like, what is it? Like, I've said that twice now. Like, my question is, what does it say? Usually montages say stuff like I have a thesis, like Rocky is getting stronger.
It doesn't need to.
It doesn't need to,
Listen,
I guess.
This is the director of Under Siege. He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. Yeah, this one is just like time is passing and stuff is happening. But all this gets stopped because the cops are outside of Ford's place suddenly. But twist, they aren't there for them. They're there for the landlord's son.
There's a drug dealer and spot on casting.
Spot on casting.
Yeah, and so this is about the hierarchy. He's a stupid drug dealer, so it doesn't matter what happens.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, but he does know that now that apartment, he has to burn that apartment now because he's now in the hands of the cops, his mortal enemy at this point.
For sure. And later, I just want to shout out when they interrogate the drug dealer, they're all eating burritos.
I love that. It's touches like that make this movie just feel right. You know?
It really does.
Just like fucking why not?
Including the drug dealer, they're all eating burritos.
I fucking love it.
Someone passing out the burritos.
It's so good. It makes no sense. Oh, I mean, it makes total sense, but it's like why?
Right.
Why in this movie and why now everyone's chewing when they're talking?
It's a good instinct where it's like, let's
totally
give them something in the scene,
It's just a lot of burritos also. It's funny.
Yeah.
So using his janitor disguise, now Ford breaks into a computer, which, he's finding the one-armed man, and he knows exactly, since he's done his study, exactly what type of prosthesis to search for to find, who has that prosthesis. And his technique is that he's cleaning the blinds, which again is very, very clever.
Yeah.
Because now they can't see what he's doing the crimes. And we intercut the cops and we find out where Ford's been staying, so the burrito scene happens, and Ford is walking by an overflowing Chicago ER, and he just can't help but help a kid. Julianne Moore is there, and it's intercut with Jones finding the IDs that he's been making. So now he knows where the hospital Ford has been like fake working for like a few days. So we're like, all right, so Jones is incoming, but meanwhile back at the hospital, Ford is forging paperwork as a doctor to diagnosing the kid to save his life and take him to surgery instead of like...
He can't help it but to save this kid's life.
And Julianne Moore sees him again after he does that and finds out like, you didn't take the kid where I said to take him to, and give me your badge.
You know what he is in this moment? He's a real daddy to that kid. He asks him about sports. He calls him like slugger. He's like a real like, you'll do better, champ. Don't worry. You like sports. What do you play? Is your parents around? Is your mom around? Is she single?
Kiddo.
How single? Can you rate your mom 1 to 10?
1 to 10.
What are we
How
talking
single
about?
is she? Yeah, exactly. And that's when the fugitive squad arrives, and Jones interviews Moore, and he hears that Ford saved the boy's life. So now we get an expression from Tommy Lee Jones that he's like, mad respect to my fellow dad. And they also notice there that there's a prosthetics clinic in the hospital because they follow a man very creepily.
I love that scene. I love it so much.
It's so good because the guy's like, get the fuck off me. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, but that it's once again, it's like 2 Sherlock Holmes figuring out and realizing the same crime. He's dropping these little breadcrumbs.
I actually want to note, I want to note that this is part of the overall vibe of Tommy Lee Jones, which is that he's such a dad. He's such an alpha that he's kind of okay. Like, he doesn't have any like social. He doesn't care how he looks.
No.
And so like they're following this guy like real creeps, and the guy turns around and goes, "We got a problem," and he's just like, "Oh no problem," like in a very gentle way, because he knows he's the big dog. And he knows he could put this guy in a headlock and dominate him if he needed to, but he's such an alpha. He's such a big daddy that it's like, no, it doesn't matter how I look. It's a confidence that goes into Tommy Lee Jones's entire performance. That is why probably he won an Oscar. It's just so good.
It's a very nuanced kind of performance in that regard. Much more than action thrillers usually try to go for.
Right. What they're trying to show when he's like, "I told you that was an L," is what they're actually showing is he's confident enough to be wrong. He just wants to win.
He
doesn't care if he's right. That's the point, and it makes him even more formidable.
And it's how they can show him as tyrannical and also have us as the audience not necessarily blame him for it because he's like earning it in other ways. But I mean, criticize the characters as you will. That's just our read on it because we kind of like dads.
Yeah.
So they go down the list of the names on the prosthetic list of who's the one-armed man. And they go, so Ford goes to like City Hall or a courthouse.
He goes to like a city jail. And this is, it's a weird thing, but like I lived in Chicago briefly where this takes place, and Chicago's a city. So everything is vertical. So like you go to this grocery store, you park on the roof. And so like what it seems like is this is one of those places where on the top of this building is in fact a jail. That's
we don't really have that in California as much.
No, I'm not used to that either, but I've seen it before.
It threw me for a little bit, but it's movie magic, baby. I believe wherever we are because the lights are there and the actors are there. But yeah, anyway, he's surrounded by cops is the point, and he's keeping his cool.
Right, we're starting to get this thing where they're like, why does he keep going into the lion's den?
Yeah,
is
exactly.
he innocent?
And it's to the point that, the squad is going to start asking questions like maybe he's trying to find like who actually, maybe he is innocent.
Because what's happening now is Tommy Lee Jones is realizing, and I love this because it works, it's legit, where he's like, he's trying to solve his own murder. Therefore, I still don't care. I just want to catch him. But what that means is I also have to do the same investigation to find him.
Exactly. Because if anything, he is thorough. And after finding out that like the next guy on the list is not the guy, he runs into Jones on the stairwell, and now it's a chase.
I'm sorry.
And
I have to shout out Driscoll, the inmate who just
Clive
wants
Driscoll.
to chat. That's all.
Yeah.
He's just like, never mind.
Dude.
He's like, hey, you got me here. They don't got any cable. Let's chat. And just good, poor Driscoll. That's all.
Poor Driscoll. He's like, man.
They treat him
like
a real criminal. He's like, what do you want? And then he's just like, hey man, let's talk. I'm bored. What's your deal? Tell me about yourself.
he's ready to talk about literally anything.
Yeah.
It's great. But I love that the stairwell sequence starts with I love the simplistic, and it's very dad because it doesn't have to be that intelligent. The simplistic kind of hacks that we do with these characters in this case, it's Tommy Lee Jones, to verify that Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford, he just yells, "Richard!" And Harrison Ford looks up and he's like, "Oh, fuck."
Right, which can happen.
Knee-jerk reaction.
But like,
that's totally a good way to like get someone. Like, hey, is that the guy I think that is? Just yell his name out. It's totally simple, and I may be, like giving it too much credit. It's just exactly the perfect way that these guys would solve that problem.
Yes, it's a real dad thing to do.
Yeah.
Because dads are also kind of dumb. Where
They're
it's like,
kinda
you see
dumb.
that and you're like, man.
But hey, it's like the definition of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's like, it's going for the duct tape, It's just, let's solve this with elbow grease. Anyway, Ford escapes in a St. Patrick's Day parade. I don't know if that's relevant at all. But he ends up,
because St. Patty's Day is the most dad holiday.
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe that's probably a bold assumption, but if we're talking about the normalization of dads and like stereotypes there, and we're talking about drinking all the time. So,
yes.
Anyway, Ford breaks into the one-armed man's house because he's the last name on the list. He finds him. He doesn't actually find him, but he finds like that a photo of him, and he's like, he notices, okay, oh, and that's my doctor buddy Lentz.
Yes,
and he pieces
finds
together
photos of him on a fishing trip.
on a fucking fishing trip.
Big Dad
Exactly.
energy. Why are they fishing with the assassin?
It's like
Why?
Robert Duvall getting cancer treatment, playing chess
Yep.
at a lake house.
A lot of
It's exactly
fishing.
it.
There's fishing in The American President. There's fishing
That's
in
right, that's right.
The Judge. Fishing in this. Was there fishing in We Are Marshall? I don't
think
remember.
they had time. They only
No.
had football to do.
But
and it's
like-
also that's an older man's game.
Right.
And We Are Marshall is about young youth.
That's true. And it's amazing. I just love that this assassin went on a delightful fishing trip and then kept all the pictures.
That's also
he
good.
wanted to keep
He's
those
this hardened
memories.
Criminal. He's like, that was a nice trip.
Yeah.
But we learned that essentially, or Ford pieces together that he's in the pocket of Big Pharma. This is all, it gets deeper, which, is
Yeah.
how these things go. And so he's fucking ballsy as fuck. And he calls Jones from the location intentionally to get him to trace the call
Yeah.
to
He
find
says,
the one-armed man. He's like,
I'm not trying to put
another.
together a puzzle here. And he's like, well, I am. And I just found a big piece.
Oh, god damn. They're so hot for each other.
Yeah.
And they dust the place. They get there. They find the evidence. And Jones talks to the Warner man. Sykes.
Yeah. Not
Jones-
before one of the cops calls him a clothes horse. So just
right.
throwing that out there.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with daddiness. It's just I flagged the term clothes horse.
I actually searched it in Google, and I was like, that can't be a term.
Yeah.
Turns out it is.
Yep.
Apparently, I just didn't know the term. Apparently, it means
no.
someone who likes a lot of clothes.
Nobody knows the term because why would someone say that?
What a weird. And why is that a term?
I don't know.
Because the thing we know about horses is
Is
all the
they
clothes
love
they
clothes.
have. Oh, Jesus. What a fucking stupid world we live in.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jones is like, again, stoicism incarnate. He just is like, his interview tactic is let them tell on themselves.
Yeah.
Which is total dad move because at any time you're either screaming orders or you're acting like I don't have to say anything.
Right.
Because you know what you did. You know what you did, son. And we find out that the pharma company found out that Ford found out that their heart drug causes like a liver disease.
Provasic.
So they're trying to shut him up and accidentally killed his wife. And we find this out because Ford calls his doctor friend, the guy the snake, to tell him. And immediately after the call, Jones, again, hot on the trail, like they essentially, now their ambitions have aligned. We got to find out who killed Ford's wife, all that stuff. But now it's like he's assembling evidence for Jones because now Jones is now hot on the trail of the real guy, the snake. And while he's doing that, Ford is going to an acquaintance who apparently is like a storage house for medical samples. I love that he has no clue that Ford was convicted of killing his wife, but he acts like he's his buddy.
Yeah.
Like, did you notice that? I found that he didn't read papers for like a year. He's like, whatever happened with that thing with your wife?
Yes, Bones. So first of all, he has a friend named Bones. That's so cool.
It's his name Bones.
Yeah. And Bones apparently is like a doom prepper or something because
Yeah.
Bones is not engaged in the news. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, he's not engaged in the news, but he's, I guess, where hospitals store medical, like the backup medical samples, which
Yeah.
are just left out in his apartment. It seems like it's very strange. But anyway, Ford is still looking for evidence. He visits Jane Lynch to verify that the samples that he got from Bones are not supposed to be, there's supposed to be multiple samples from multiple patients, but the company has been covering up the damaged liver samples by putting healthy ones in, and they're all the same. They're all from the same people.
Right.
So it's all falsified. And also, we learn that Lentz, the guy who was on the fishing trip, is also dead, and he isn't the one who actually manipulated the samples and is after Harrison Ford, but rather he probably was a part of this whole scenario.
And Harrison Ford gets a real grumpy face. And he's like, where are you going to go? And he's
together.
like, I got to go see a friend.
And his friend did it, the snake. Meanwhile, the one-armed man has now been following Ford. and Ford boards a train, and a passenger recognizes him from a front page article.
Yeah, and what I would say is an Oscar-worthy cartoon performance, where he like looks at the paper, looks at Ford, makes a face, and then like slowly gets up and leaves to go talk to a cop, like practically whistling. It's great.
And and I love that shot because right as Harrison Ford's looking right down the barrel of the train, he's like, "Oh shit!" He's just told a cop. But then Sykes arrives and just inhabits the frame.
Right.
And it's time for a dad train fight. And Sykes ends up shooting the cop, which is wild because he probably could have convinced the cop that he was like, "Oh no, I'm doing a citizen's arrest. I'm a security officer and all that."
Yeah,
no, he just shot him.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, how convenient, how incredibly convenient that the villain, who is a master assassin up until this point, doing a great job, not
just totally whiffs it.
Yeah, just shoots a fucking cop, and not just a cop, the janitor from Scrubs.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And Ford takes that moment to beat the shit out of Sykes, and he takes all the guns, the cop's gun and his gun, and he puts them in a mailbox.
Right,
which is also
very daddy
that shows
of him.
Because he's like, I don't want to use violence.
It reminds me of Die Hard with a Vengeance, which is a pretty daddy movie, I would say, where the bomb, they keep going, well, some kid could get this, we have to be responsible.
Exactly. Though it's literally evidence to show that like if he left them there, they could piece together just with the forensics test, oh, he shot him. Dr. Kimball didn't do any of didn't kill the cop, but instead he's going to allow the police to believe that he shot a cop probably.
Right.
Anyway, local cops, it's all coming to a head. The officer shooting alerts the Fuge squad. And Ford goes to a hotel where his doctor friend is giving a speech about the new drug, convenient to a conference of doctors. And the local cops try to stop Tommy Lee Jones from entering the same place. And they're like, it's our investigation. Stay out. And what does he say, Dave? He says, arrest us.
Yeah.
What a line.
Hell yeah.
What a piece of shit. Because it's just the same old shit. Cops fighting cops over whose jurisdiction it is.
So bad.
And Kimball just walks right up to the podium and accuses his friend of killing his wife and the company
switch
in general.
The samples. He it's very dad for it to all take place at a convention. Very
publicly.
Dads go on conventions.
That's true.
And it ends with confronting a colleague with a big speech.
Something we all dream about when we shower. You know? Yeah. We all play it in our head. I'm going to give them that speech. They'll all pay.
Yep.
And so they go and they talk privately, which is it's just a doctor fight. So Jones is fighting his snake friend.
Old man doctor fight.
Ford.
He's like, Richard, let's go talk this out in the other room. And he walks in and he nails him with a chair like a fucking pro wrestler.
Oh, it's great. And then it's just bear on bear action.
Kidney punches. One of them falls down the fucking stairs. They fall through a roof and
just
into
real
an
bad
elevator.
At yeah. They're not good at fighting, and I think that's key.
They're both
because
doctors.
I think that dads almost like it better if the fighting isn't necessarily like virtuoso.
It's not a fight.
We also
it's
like
a brawl.
that too, but we prefer it when it's a brawl. Yeah. Jones arrives and goes out to the roof where the fight is now moved, and the helicopters are shining the light on Ford. And once again, he basically does everything but hisses at the light, like he's truly a bear. Like it scares him to move. Like that's how they're treating him. It's great. And the helicopter then gets the go-ahead from the local cops to they're like, just shoot him. But then Jones, who sees that he's firing at him, he's like, I'm going to call it off and my jurisdiction's better. So the helicopter, because he's yelling loudly, I guess listens to him now. Right. So the helicopter fucks off. More fighting. They fall down an elevator, descend onto a laundry floor, which is just, I guess, like the floor where the hotel does all the laundry. And we have a little cat and mouse there, and then Ford saves Jones when the doctor buddy aims his gun. He aims Joey Pants' gun at Jones.
Right.
And Ford beats him with a pipe, which is
does.
a very appropriate.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a dick.
He just slaps him with a dick. And Jones tells Ford he knows he didn't kill his wife.
Yep.
And they take him into custody, and Jones is kind to Ford in the backseat with him.
Care.
Undoes his handcuffs. Just two dads with respect for each other.
Yep.
And then turns out Jones cares, but then he says the last line of the movie, "Don't tell anybody, okay?"
Yep.
Because we can't let that shit out.
Can't let the daddy secrets slip.
It's vulnerability that we can't
Yeah.
be to the world. We can just be it between dads. Just
And
dads
then-
can be
yeah.
vulnerable to dads. That's it. That's the only situation.
and then they
And a
kiss.
fugitive. hmm
Yeah.
And yes.
That
Yes.
is the fugitive. I want
We
you
nailed
to I want to know you to tell you something real quick.
Yeah, what's up?
You can go to devlinmcgregor.com and it is a full pharmaceutical company page.
Get the fuck out of here.
Someone made with like several tabs. It's updated. It is completely a parody, a full parody.
Is
They
it still
sell-
1993 in there?
No, it's like they literally are talking about like, oh yeah, we're gonna appear at this 2023 convention this year. Like someone is updating it. They sell merchandise. You can get Devlin McGregor hats, Provasic shirts.
That's so fucking awesome.
Yeah,
That's so stupid, I mean to say.
yeah. No, I'm gonna buy stuff right.
I'm
after
going to
this.
buy stuff right after that. That's going on the old bookmarks.
Yep. So
Oh, hell yes.
The Fugitive, Daddy.
So let's go to the smoking room, Dave, and let's talk about, has this updated our conclusions? What have we learned about the dad trope?
Okay, so the one that I think is undeniable is 4 words: reverence for the system.
For the system. Yes, I agree.
That's in all of these movies.
Also, women are in peril.
Yes, you could argue that there were women on the plane at We Are Marshall too. So
that's
women are in peril. I'm writing that
We don't
down.
need them all to check all the boxes. It's fine.
No, but women are in peril in We Are Marshall.
It's the vibe. It's innocence as well, but it's usually in the case of women because, what do men like more than anything?
Right.
The inciting incident is a tragedy,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Always use guile. Violence is secondary, only if necessary.
Guile over violence.
And in the case of Tommy Lee Jones, just plowing ahead, stay the course, take control.
Yes,
Right?
stay
That's
the course. I would say, is that the same
That's
as
a tactic.
like job ethics?
Yeah, I would say that they're kind of similar, they're similar. They can be separate, but I just like the idea that like a tactic of dads is plow through stuff.
There's definitely stay the course / plow through stuff. I'm writing it down because that's definitely throughout all of these. Right, we stay the course. So I have like I still think job ethics is a big part of these. Right. So like listed here: job ethics, reverence for the system, women are in peril, dealing with tragedy, and guile over violence, and staying the course.
Yeah, for sure. Doing your job also is like, I think also a bedfellow with some of these, like just the idea of like, be good at your job, just like focus on that.
Yeah.
And that will set you free. Also, something that I'm starting to notice in retrospect, I think we mentioned the last episode, the very concept of just being underestimated.
Yes.
Because that means a later scene will occur where you get the victory because you are underestimated.
I think that goes into guile, right?
I think it does a little bit because
But
guile
I'm-
can
I'm
sometimes
writing
take that form.
Yeah, I'm writing that down though for sure.
We do technically get dicks, though we don't get piss and shit in this movie.
Yeah, I will write dicks and piss and shit as a possible.
I'm still
one.
saying it. It's
I
still
think we need more
plays.
exploration of that one. Also,
We still
daughters.
gotta-
Reverence for daughters.
Daughters, we don't have being a parent in this one, but we do have reverence for children and the innocent again. But we don't have daughters like we do in a lot of the other films we've covered, where it's just straight up,
Right,
you
but
know,
there is still like, definitely the children.
something with
he's a daddy.
yeah.
Yeah, no, not in this one. I'm just saying, like, what have we learned from the last 4 ones? You know?
Yeah, exactly. And in that same vein, I think that there's like referencing sports or male bonding. We get the
Sports,
squad,
fishing. I'd say.
yeah, fishing and stuff. I mean, these are specific like fishing and sports, but I would say in general, it's just the feeling of
Male
like bonding with the
camaraderie.
team,
Yeah.
and camaraderie. Don't forget that I think in all of them we have some indication of they're virile, they're sexually and physically powerful. Right?
Dicks that work. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that a new one that's starting to form for me is the idea of how dads approach authority, which is sometimes it's just declaring things you want because your leadership is like beyond reproach, right?
Right. Yeah. It's almost like a challenge authority to become the authority. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's challenge authority, but don't question it.
Yeah, I like that. Don't question the authority, but also listen to what I say because you respect me because I'm above it. I am a part of not the system,
Yeah,
but
and I
the
would say
system behind
that
systems.
is, uniquely different than reverence for the system, but it does go within it.
It's all still the same thing. And I think that a new one that I think we're going to see a lot more of depending on where we go with this series is what would you do, which we talked about at the top of this podcast. The
Right.
concept of like teleport yourself into the shoes of someone who's having a bad day, the world doesn't believe in you, or the world thinks you're a piece of shit. Prove them wrong. How would you do it?
Yep. I also think the guile over violence being underestimated also goes in with badass everyman. I think that's going to become a thing.
I think every man is like that kind of goes without saying, right? Like the whole concept is that a dad is an everyman, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
but
we'll
totally.
see how that goes. But I think we're going to get a lot of like your job starts as like, I do this whatever wussy job, and then I do badass.
And I
things.
think that here's something that I've been thinking about. A lot of these tropes are also kind of forming in this kind of this little mold that I imagine that is something we actually haven't covered in any of these movies truly. I mean, a little bit in this one. But I think that we're going to see it more and more the deeper we go, Dad, which is the concept of vigilantism. We're all our own personal Batman. And in this one, we get a little vigilantism in the form of he solves his own crime because they didn't do a good enough job. But I think there's something about just like what would you do, like being underestimated, all these concepts of being like the person who's the outsider and has to prove something. Vigilantism comes from that. You're seeing the secret truth.
Yeah, it's also like renegade. It's part of the
yeah.
I think it's part of the, challenge authority but don't question it, which is like it's someone taking the place. Like you said, Batman, where it's like I'm technically going alone, but it's to fight crime, not to rob banks or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna ruin anyone's day or do anything that would break the social contract.
Right.
I'm gonna bend it and steal a car, but don't worry, they'll get it back. It's that kind of two steps forward, one step back kind of mentality.
For sure.
Because you have to chip away at it. It's hard work being the right one in the room all the time.
Right.
And then this is just auxiliary at this point, because I think the list is pretty solid right now. But something about trains and planes and driving around.
Oh yeah.
We get a lot of driving around.
I would say we call it big machines.
Big machines.
Because look at this. This takes place in a laundry room at the end. There's like planes.
Helicopters.
I guess, yeah. He teaches his kid to drive in the Judge. The car stuff in the Judge.
In American President, one of the biggest arcs of sub arcs is the fact that he can't drive. It causes
Right.
a lot of problems.
But he has
you
a
know?
helicopter now, doesn't he? And that's
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, he does. That's cool. He's got a fly car. He's
Yeah.
got a better car. But yeah, it's I think a lot of shit happening on trains and planes and stuff because. Like it's just a vibe. At this point, we're just talking about like what
We're
when you see the
putting everything
scenes,
down because we don't want to.
We don't want to miss a thing.
Yeah, and we don't want to just nail down like these 4 elements. I think for this first batch, it's nice to get them all down, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, I think we've done it though. Is there anything else you want to add to this list as per the 4 movies that we watched this month?
Weirdly enough, you'd think facial hair would be more of an issue or a thing, but
Not in the movies we watched.
yeah. So I'm
one.
gonna keep an eye on that. But right now,
Exactly. We got our eye on you, beards.
Yeah,
is what you're hearing from Inside Dads.
exactly.
But yeah, I think that is as good place as any to be like, hey, I think we're still compiling the list, and hopefully it'll form into like 2 or 3 like really succinct kind of like this is what a dad movie is. That's the experiment we're doing here in Small
Right.
Beans, and we'll see how long it takes us to do that. Because I'll always be watching dad movies. I had a blast. This was a great time. Dave, where do you think people can find you on the internet?
Oh, geez, they can find me if they look up Gamefully Unemployed, GAMEFULLY Unemployed. We have a Patreon. This is a network I do with Tom Ryman. Patreon.com/Gamefully Unemployed to find some exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder's a Maniac, and then some podcasts we do with you, the Small Beans, such as Star Trek: The Next Futurama and Spiel Boys, and then we do like weekly free podcasts about movies, Hypecast we just watched, which is a movie review show. So check it out if you haven't.
Check it out. And as always, go to patreon.com/smallbeans and throw us a few dollars if you can, because you can get access to some exclusives, like maybe the rest of this series. I haven't decided it yet, and I get off from withholding. So I'm deciding now that if you want some more of these episodes, maybe you're going to have to do that. But I don't know. This has been a great talking dads with you. I can do this forever, man.
Oh yeah,
What a great time.
Daddies forever. Let's get the tattoos that say that.
Oh, daddies forever. Tattoos.
Yep.
On our arms? On our butts?
Let's start with the arms, and then we'll do it other places too.
Right above
you can
our
have
crotch?
multiple daddy tattoos, right?
Yeah, I just want to know what my first is.
Oh, I mean, feet, bottom of the feet.
Bottom of the feet, so we walk upon it every day.
Yeah, and it sucks for like a few weeks after we get it.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that'd be terrible.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get the fuck out of here.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Dads.
Dads. Dads.